Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining early this morning or wherever you are and whatever time it is. We are very excited. What is this about? My name is Tristan. I'm the founder of the AI Strategy Institute and lecturer for the application of artificial intelligence at the Technical University of Munich and faculty member at the Boston Consulting Group. And I'm joined here today by Georgeta Auktor from TUM International and Allison from Verdas AI. And we are here to talk about how universities can navigate the age of artificial intelligence. And we're also here to talk about our partnership and tell you how we empowering or helping universities to navigate the age of artificial intelligence. So what I would like to do is I want to give over to Georgeta and Allison to shortly introduce themselves and also their organizations and tell us what they're doing. So maybe we start with you, Georgeta.
Sure. Good morning or good afternoon to all of you. I'm delighted to be here today, joining my colleagues from AI Strategy Institute and Verdas AI as also a way of kicking off our partnership around integrating AI in education institutions. And I'm also delighted to represent TUM International. TUM International is a subsidiary of the Technical University of Munich. We are based in Munich, and we have been around for almost 2 decades, have evolved and changed with changing education and industrial landscape. And basically, given TUM's evolution over the years into an entrepreneurial university and its very deep connection to the regional and industrial fabric within Bavaria, but also Germany more generally. We do specialize in bridging industry and academia, supporting education institutions to achieve their third mission in the society. And basically, we advise education institutions, but also policymakers and industry in ecosystem building and also talent development across technologies, across sectors. We do work globally, so our partners span different geographies, different institutions or institutional and cultural contexts. And while our focus has been primarily higher education institutions, and this is the sector on which we will focus mainly today, we do intervene at system level when it comes to education policy reform and specific innovation and knowledge development interventions. So happy to be here, and I look forward to the discussion with my colleagues, but also with you in the live audience.
Yeah, very happy to have you here. And this is also maybe for you who might be listening. Please, you can just directly put your comments in under LinkedIn, and we can see the comments. And if you have questions, we can also discuss them. So thank you so much for the introduction and also the work of TUM International. I think it's very cool. We have been working already closely together, I would say, for the last 1.5 years, and really enjoyed the work together. And then also Allison and Verdas AI came in, and I think it's a great match because Allison, you go quite back in the higher education field. So please, can you introduce yourself and what Verdas is doing or brings to the table?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, happy to be here, and happy to see everyone in the live stream as well. So I'm Allison Fisher. I am CEO and co-founder of Verdas AI. We support companies with implementing responsible AI, so implementing AI in ways that thinks about responsibility and ethical risks. We do this all the way from AI strategy all the way up to implementation. And we also do a lot of capacity building and training around AI, responsible AI, and these sorts of topics. Personally, I started out life as a professor. So I once upon a time was a professor in the States in the very beginning of my career, and so I have over 20 years of experience in higher education as a professor, and then a campus dean, a dean of curriculum, and then a dean of general studies in the US. So I have been in AI and capacity building in this space for the past 7 years, but in terms of higher education, my background is a lot longer. So yeah, excited to be here and talk about this topic.
Yeah, so very great to have you here. Maybe I say one or two words also about the AI Strategy Institute. I mean, what do we bring to the table? We have seen TUM International brings this deep experience in working with higher education institutions on a systematic level, but also with governments. So there's a lot of insights here how higher education can transform or has to transform. Allison also the kind of like this deep background in the educational field, but also bringing especially the ethical perspectives and deep experience in training. What is the AI Strategy Institute doing? So we come more from the strategic side, thinking about how can you strategically leverage artificial intelligence. And that brings us to kind of like the first thing that I want to discuss. So why is AI a game changer for universities? I mean, we have to think about when ChatGPT arrived in November 22. I think not only universities, but all education institutions, schools, universities, they were quite, it felt like almost a shock to their system when ChatGPT arrived. So maybe you can talk a little bit about what are the biggest challenges and opportunities that AI presents in higher education. What do you see? Whoever wants to take the question.
I can start. So indeed, as you mentioned, Tristan, we've seen in the recent past, very recent past, that AI and related technology have really already driven a very profound transformation across all layers of society. I mean, industry, the way we engage with the technology, and obviously also the way we learn and the way we teach. And if I may kind of take a small step back, I mean, I think we all agree in this audience that education generally is really a key to unlocking human potential. This is what drives our work as well internationally. And higher education in particular has been an anchor and must be an anchor for technology and industrial development, and therefore should play a leading role when it comes to also this newer and very rapid transformation that we see around AI and digital transformation. Now, when we think specifically, and you mentioned ChatGPT and other generative AI, Gen AI more generally, Gen AI tools have evolved much more rapidly than universities have been able to respond with policy and adaptive measures. And this is rather new. You said a shock to the system. I think we've all seen that with very different reactions, either kind of very exciting, seeing the opportunities, but also reactive, defensive, seeing the threat that such technologies and tools may offer. However, I would say that the transformative potential that AI has on education is tremendous. It comes with a lot of challenges, adapting, preparing in terms of also, I mean, if we talk of, and you said, what are the challenges, what are the opportunities? The opportunities, I would say, are vast when it comes to learning, adapting, learning to different learning styles, also rethinking the way we teach and transfer knowledge, And in addition, if we think of higher education institutions, also on the operational level, how to use such tools to improve efficiency operations of these technologies. Challenges, I'm sure we'll talk in the remaining time also on more specific challenges, but I would just, let's say, start with a few. What does this mean on academic integrity? What does this mean on data privacy, sharing information across? How do universities prepare faculty to engage upskilling, basically upskilling, capacity building for the faculty to rethink the way we teach courses and share knowledge? What kind of skills are needed on the market, and how quickly can universities prepare or ensure that they deliver employable skills? Ethical consideration that I'm sure Allison will discuss in greater depth, but also the needed investments in infrastructure that universities would need to invest to be able to integrate AI and engage with AI more broadly.
Yeah. And I mean, Allison, so I know maybe we take a step back and I mean, I know we together last year did a project also in higher education, and what I thought very interesting or interestingly, what I mean, when we worked on this, what we realized is that, I mean, there was specifically in this higher education system one kind of group that actively pushed AI into university, and then these were the students. So would be very interesting from you, just kind of like to get a step back and acknowledge that the students were actually the people that have been driving kind of like, or forced a lot of universities to think critically about AI, the adoption of AI. So Allison, what do you see? What do you think? How will AI, or how can AI be a tool to completely change the student experience, or how might the student experience look in the future?
Yeah, and I think this is as Georgeta was saying, I think this is the exciting part. I think it's also the scary part. So if I were a professor today, it would certainly be very scary, I think. I think, AI, as you said, students are already using it, right? We can have these ideas about whether or not students should have it. Like, we can have these conversations, like, should you use? But the reality is that it exists and it's a tool, and students will be using it. So I think the super interesting thing is, obviously there is this, it's already happening, but there's this enormous potential for personalized learning. I mean, when I was a dean of curriculum and we were reviewing tools for like adaptive learning, this was all around, manually designed branching scenarios, and the types of possibilities that you have with curriculum, with designing learning experiences that are tailored not just to the individual student, but to the individual student at a very specific point in time. I mean, these are incredible potential to give students really exactly what they need at a specific moment. But of course, there's a lot of challenges around that. So I think the positive side is that it gives students a lot of agency around what they do in education. It gives them a lot of ownership. It kind of puts them at the center of that learning experience. But I do think we then, as educators, have a kind of different task, as Georgeta said, around the skills. What kind of skills do students need to be good users or responsible users of AI? And I think that is an interesting way to think about our roles. Like, what are the skills that students can't get from AI? Because if I were a teacher now, I would be thinking about, okay, what is the knowledge or what are the skills that students can't get from ChatGPT or some other generative AI system, where they really have to get it from a professor, they have to get it from their peers. And I think that is a really interesting place to be in education, where you can kind of really think about, well, what's my role and what's that unique piece that I add? But yeah, in terms of the student experience, I think we see really exciting changes happening. Scary for us who have been around for a while, but I mean, when I first started teaching, we were telling students not to use Wikipedia. We were telling students not to use internet research. And now looking back, that seems almost laughable, right? And I think we'll have similar sort of evolution with AI, that it's just about how well you use these tools, how you think about them, how thoughtful you are, and how well you understand them as well.
Yeah. And maybe to share one anecdote to make the things more concrete. So I used to build up one of the largest startup incubators for AI in Europe. And I remember in one of our batches, we had actually one of these startups in education, and we were talking about personalized learning, what were they doing. So basically you could, from your students, you can have a list and you could put in what are their interests. And then you could basically create course material based on their interests. So maybe let's say, you have students that they want to teach English or something, and you're training simple past or something, and then you can basically make text generated or generated for them based on their interests. So if I would be interested in I don't know, football, then I would get a text around football. So these are the things that there are a couple of levels for interest, but also often depending on your ability, that you can have very specific personalized questions. I mean, on the other hand side, and also to come to the next question, one of the challenges that this creates for students, and I see this sometimes in my students, that they mistake these AI tools for thinking tools, so that they take over the thinking instead of them. And you can often see this in the output. And this is what I see one of the main challenges, where we also as educators have to think about how can we maybe adapt our ways of teaching and also assessing students. So this is the next question I would like to talk about before we move on. I mean, when I'm thinking about academia, what are important stakeholders we have to talk about? On the one hand side, we have the students, then thinking about how AI might impact their student experience. Then we have our faculty members and researchers. How can this AI affect their work? And this is what we're going to talk about afterwards. And then we want to talk about, I mean, for administration, how AI can change administration. But how do you think? I mean, this connection now for professors or teachers and students. What will happen there? How AI might change the teaching and assessment experience?
I can pick up on that, Tristan. I mean, I fully agree. That this is. I would also see this as one of the biggest challenges when it comes to teaching and learning, and specifically, I see that, and I speak of us as taking the role of academics and thinking of the students as well. I do see that our responsibilities that define teachers, academics, but also students, when those responsibilities get outsourced to Gen AI or to AI more generally, I see this as the biggest challenge. So I think this really requires a lot of thought into what does it mean to learn how to write, what does it mean to develop creative thinking, and what is our responsibility or the responsibility of teachers, academics more generally, in conveying and teaching those skills, critical, basic skills, and also what does it mean for the students to that responsible learning, adopting that responsible learning process. So from the academic side, I always think, and I've been a teacher myself, if the learning outcomes get outsourced to Gen AI, I do see that as problems, because it means that we or the academics have not done their job. And if the learning objectives are met, but on the way there, Gen AI tools are used, then we did our job. We've conveyed and made sure that critical thinking, collaboration, also thinking patterns and that are very important to develop writing skills have been learned. So that's where I would say, it's very important to rethink what kind of learning outcomes do we want to achieve in the classroom, and how to make sure that those outcomes are learned by the students with the help of these tools, because they are tools and their value depends on how you use them. So yeah, quick point here. Happy to come back on this later. Tristan, you are muted.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I still want to kind of like go a little bit deeper. I mean, Allison, so when we think about also kind of like of teaching and I mean, you with Verdas, you have brought out a lot of courses about AI and also critically thinking about AI. How much should we also incorporate kind of like talking about or educating about this technology in higher education?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have to, right? We have to integrate it because, as we said, students are going to use it, and the reality is that we need them as professionals to be able to use it. I mean, there are lots of studies around performance in the workplace, and people who understand where to use AI and how to use it effectively can outperform others. Who aren't using these tools. And so I think it is also our responsibility to prepare them to use it, to prepare students to use this professionally. And I think that requires teaching around, what's responsible. Like I said, when I was back teaching around using internet research and things like this, it was all about teaching students to think critically about the tool and to really understand its limitations and understand how to incorporate it and use it to augment their own critical thinking, to use it to augment their own knowledge. And I think that is something that students need, especially, we're all, those of us who are old enough to be professors or teachers, we're not sort of digital natives in that sense. It doesn't come as naturally to us. And therefore we might be more reflective about it. I think that's a might, not a given. But I think for those who are growing up, I mean, I'm visiting family now, and my nieces and nephews, like this is just a natural part of how they interact with the world and how they gain information and how they try to do that. And so I think teaching them to examine it and think about, okay, where is it useful? Where are these tools helpful? Where can they supplement my own understanding? And where do they maybe not perform well? What are the things that I need to be cautious about? What are the things to be thoughtful about? I think that's also going to be part of our task as educators.
Yeah.
If I may add on that, Tristan, I think thinking about also what is the value of the value in education system is really in this student-teacher interaction, in the mentorship, guidance, and we have seen that also ourselves being students. So the opportunity that these tools offer to the teachers themselves in kind of freeing up time to engage with the students more deeply, to interact, to guide, to mentor in how to use those technologies and how to get the best out of it and use them in a creative, problem-solving way, the better for both the students and the faculty and the academics themselves.
Yeah. And maybe here it's good also to mention a little bit of our partnership and what we're doing. I mean, we help not only we can provide a lot of these courses how to think ethically about using different tools, but what we also do, and I think this is quite interesting. I mean, we have all deep experience in setting up different curricula on AI and around AI, and obviously AI is now also becoming a more important topic on the on kind of like, how do you say, in curricular design as well, because a lot of students want to learn about artificial intelligence, and I mean, we have experience also in providing these courses or setting up these curriculars to get up to skill when it comes to AI. Maybe one last thing that I want to say before we go over to the next group of stakeholders we want to talk about is what I find quite interesting. I mean, Allison, we did again this project last year where we looked at very ahead in the future how AI might change the assessment experience. And we said one of the possibilities that we looked at, that each student might get their own AI learning assistant or learning facilitator that runs together with the students throughout his whole academic career and learns together with the students. And this, in theory, could eliminate the need for examination, because you have now someone who's very closely follows you up, and through the interaction, this learning assistant will understand if you're good enough in a certain topic, if you really have understood it, instead of kind of like one-time examination. And my exams with my course are actually coming up next week, and I think it's always so strange letting the students learn for one thing, and I never think that the grade they get is really kind of like indicative of how good they necessarily are in the course. So I think there is a lot of opportunity here. But now, also looking at time, I would love to go kind of like to the next stakeholder group, and the next stakeholder group are kind of like researchers, and thinking about what is their output. On the one hand side, we talked about this teaching, but also delivering research and good quality research. So how might AI be used here, so that we can improve the quality of the research that is actually coming out, and maybe or even the quantity?
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting area. I think it's, at least personally, this is where I have the most sort of like ingrained resistance, I think. So I have this kind of gut reaction to this. And then when I reflect on this, I find it really exciting, actually, in terms of possibilities. So I think, there are obvious places where generative AI and these tools are very good at synthesis. They're very good at combing through massive amounts of data in ways that humans are not. And so I think there are obvious applications there. But I think there are also really interesting ways that we can think about AI leveling the field. If you're a researcher at a smaller institution, maybe you don't have access to the same grants and things that other organizations might have. You don't have a huge lab team. You don't have, a team of graduate students, for example. There are, I think, a lot of possibilities for AI, agentic AI, to kind of level that playing field and give resources to researchers that you say, I need somebody to run these experiments, or I need something. There is a lot of potential there to integrate AI into that research process, of course, with the researcher's intelligence and experience guiding that and validating those experiments. But I think there's a lot of interest there with the amount of scholarly output that exists in the world now. I think the idea that any one expert can stay up to date on that on their own is also, even in a very, very narrow subject area, I think is increasingly nearly impossible task. So having AI to augment and supplement that area as well is something that I think has a huge potential for researchers, to keep them really on the cutting edge, keep them up to date, and help also spread their knowledge.
Yeah, great insights. Georgeta, you wanna add something on this?
I fully agree with Allison on this point. I think I also have here. Here is the area where I also have a bit of a caution. I approach this with a bit of caution because it also requires. So I absolutely see the potential in supporting augmentation of capabilities for researchers, leveling the playing field, and also speeding up processes that we normally have to go through to synthesize, to review vast amount of information. When I say this, the challenge being stronger, so to say, in the social sciences field, where we do have to critically analyze information, provided all the literature reviews that normally have to be done, the analytical perspectives that we have to take, the hypothesis that you have to generate, the writing that has to support, that have to support your argument. So while generative AI can be very, very helpful, I think it does call for universities in this case, but education institutions more generally, to also engage much more actively with teaching academic integrity, both for the teachers, but also for the researchers. How do we think academic integrity in this age of generative AI, what is citable, what is not, how do we validate the information that we get through these supporting tools. And those are new skills that everyone has to develop and also to deepen. So those kind of courses or upskilling being integrated in the universities, I see that as being quite important.
Yeah, maybe also a comment. I see already that the people listening to us are posting very, very, very actively. It's great to see that the discussion is going on. So also, if I see there are already some questions in there, if you have questions, post them. We'll try in the last 15 minutes to answer to the questions. Maybe also one insight. I mean, how I often like to look at AI, there are two different ways. I often like to look at what are the benefits of using AI and understand, okay, how do these benefits apply to higher education? For instance, I say, okay, well, one of the main benefits is that with AI you can have better decision making, and one kind of like area where I see this is there are already tools available in the market that help you find gaps in the literature where you could maybe place some or do some interesting research in. So I see this as a valid point, or another thing is reducing the cost of doing business. So here are different tools that can help you. I mean, for instance, cite faster or find citations faster, do the literature review faster. So you need less time, what gives you more possibility to create good literature. And also, I mean, we know these large language models. The challenge that I see with my students, they often use them as a thinking tool, and then what you get out are very kind of like average average output, I would say. And even if you read through them, a lot of things they don't very sound academic. But if you understand how you can like prompt correctly, put your thoughts in, and say, okay, well, help me to structure this a little bit more, it can be a very good writing aid that can help you to produce good kind of like good written work. And I remember back then, like, just thinking about the opportunities, because I'm not native tongue English, and when I wanted to produce a very good written piece of work, I had to give it to 2-3 friends who were English mother tongue to read over this. So now almost everyone can, at least from a language perspective and a grammar perspective, create very good highly valuable output. Another thing what I often see is kind of like hyper personalization, that in theory you could kind of like very personalized do things and or communicate things. I mean, you can think about hey, I have this research paper, please create me 2 or 3 different articles, one out of this research paper, one targeted for, I mean, more a general audience, one targeted towards an audience, I don't know, for students in mathematics. So kind of like I can work on this very personalized. And the last thing I think it's very interesting I want to talk about is the idea of innovation. So you can do now things that you couldn't do before. And I see AI is being more and more used to do research. So for instance, sentiment analysis is used. So AI sentiment analysis is, for instance, used to understand what people might be talking about in the internet and use this to write, do research on this. So a lot of very cool opportunities, even for research, how to use AI in their work and for their work. And this is something that I really like. Now going maybe to the next level, I'm thinking about, okay, who kind of like, when we're talking about university operations, there also a lot of work goes into this. How do you see AI impacting university operations?
You want to start, Allison?
Sure. I'm just trying to find my mute button. Yeah, I think there's an enormous potential here. I think we often, or at least my default as a former teacher and an admin is to think about instruction and think about students, but I think there's such an enormous potential around operations. And if you think about like the business of education, which often we don't as academics like to think about this side, but universities are and all higher education institutions are huge machines and huge businesses. And so I think the opportunity for streamlining operations, for managing facilities, I think AI will increasingly also reimagine the way the university looks, like in the physical sense and a digital sense. But I think managing those giant facilities, managing those operations are things that have enormous potential. I mean, we think about the typical areas that we would apply AI in a business, in billing, in managing customer service, in optimizing all sorts of operations. We have enormous potential there. I think one of the challenges around that is that, as we've been talking about, AI or education is such an essential thing, and it's highly regulated, and also kind of I would say a highly ethically important area. So we think about access to education is valued kind of universally around the globe, and this leads to the fact that there are higher risks when we optimize there. So I think there are things we have to consider if we're optimizing, say, customer service in education versus in a normal online business, or if we're optimizing billing and things like this. These have additional challenges or additional issues, but I don't think that should keep us from exploring these ways. I mean, we've all probably had really painful experiences, myself, both as a student and as an administrator, with dealing with, funding, tuition, all of these things that take a lot of effort from the university side that are often very painful from the student side. I think that AI has a huge potential to streamline those things, make them easier for everyone, make them cheaper for universities, to lower those cost margins, and to have a lot of these people who currently work at universities focus on the actual expertise that they have, like spending time to really help students one-on-one, instead of trying to work with really archaic billing systems or trying to work with really archaic interfaces with funding and things like this.
I don't have much to add to those benefits that Allison listed. I would just say that in order for universities to harness those opportunities in administering better or operating better, it's also very important to take care of all those ethical issues, data privacy, having processes in place to address bias, transparency, fairness in applying AI or engaging with AI. And this is also why we as a team, we do advocate for the importance of a whole institution approach. So rather than having a piecemeal approach to integrating AI, either in curricula or perhaps in capacity building for different levels of staff, it's very important to have a whole institution approach where AI is deeply integrated in the university strategy, in policies, in regulations, so that all those aspects are being addressed simultaneously, and everyone can harness the opportunities that come with it in a fair, ethical way.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great that you mentioned this, because this brings me to the next question. So, how in general should universities approach AI disruption or transformation? I think we said it already. I mean, it was very disruptive when it arrived, but now we have to think about it more transformationally. But how should higher education institutions think about this when they want to use AI really as a tool in teaching, in research, and also in operations?
Sure. Okay, I'll continue on this point then. So I think it's very important to have from start a very clear vision on how to harness all the possible benefits from engaging with these tools. Think also about the kind of capacity building programs that are necessary for faculty, for students. Also initially assess the readiness of the institution, how ready in terms of infrastructure, in terms of know-how, in terms of willingness to engage with the technology, different stakeholders groups are. Also, perhaps having a roadmap to prioritize use cases in different pillars of the university, and thinking holistically also when it comes to industry partnerships, especially in this area where the technology evolves so rapidly, is absolutely important to partner with industry, with technology developers, technology providers, and think holistically how to integrate those tools in the education, in the research, but also think about how to integrate them in the innovation, entrepreneurship related activities, so that students get hands-on learning experience on how to engage, how to leverage the full potential of such technologies, so that those employable skills are also developed in the process. And at the same time, thinking also about how those industry partnerships, what kind of tools may be useful for the administrative parts of the university, and for that, what kind of policies may be needed. And here, advancements on policy and regulations are also lacking behind the technology development. So I see also as a challenge for university leaders, university executives, in kind of exploring what the right policies, what the right regulations may be. So there, a very close collaboration also with the policymakers is important, to be able to have up to date standards of applying and engaging with those tools.
Yeah, absolutely. I would also just add, I think this this engagement with, I was just in Geneva last week and talking with groups, and these collaborations between private and public and government entities is so important, I think, right now. So having universities engaging, as you said, with regulators, with private industry, and also, there's so much knowledge, and there's so much deep understanding within universities. I think taking that and taking it out of the research centers, taking it out of these academic silos, and spreading it into the business parts or the operational parts of the university, and also helping to inform the public is a really exciting opportunity for universities right now as well.
Yeah. Also, I can say a little bit with this kind of like thinking also about strategies for universities to approach this topic. So normally how we would do this also in this partnership, how we would help kind of like these institutions. On the one hand side, you need to have a proper basis. You need to understand the fundamentals of AI and how AI might impact your higher institution education. And with this understanding, what we're trying to do then is kind of like develop a vision for your institution, how it could look like when it's AI enabled. And then we look at a couple of things. On the one hand side, we look at use cases. So what use cases along the value chain in education, in research, but also in operations are relevant, and thinking also about make or buy, because most of these use cases might be already available. These are tools you can have on the market and already leverage now. It's not that you need to have a team of developers where you need to rebuild the most use cases by yourself, but then also thinking about what are those enabling factors? What are these things when it comes to infrastructure, data, that you need to do or collect? What do you have to think about when it comes to talent and expertise? So to the people and culture, because I just know there might be some staff that might have much more challenges when it comes to adapting to AI. How we can use this, and I think especially here, higher teaching education have a competitive advantage, because when it comes to talent and expertise in higher education, that's one of the jobs of the higher education institutions, is to bring out the talent and the expertise. So you can also think about, how can I use this technology by maybe actively trying to source new professors in the field of artificial intelligence, and also use their know-how and ability to advance my own AI strategy. What kind of curricula do I might need and want to develop? This is something also we do and help with. Then thinking about the ecosystem, I mean, Georgeta, you talked about partnerships, industry partnerships as well. So thinking about, on the one hand side, external industry collaboration, and we have seen a lot of great collaborations. I mean, just here with TUM, where they have collaborations with Google, I think IBM, to work on a lot of these cutting edge things, but also internally. How is this team set up, and maybe also how you can use the students. I mean, here in Munich, we have one of the largest student initiatives for artificial intelligence, TUM AI, and they have become I think one of the most important resources, not only here in higher education, but for the whole ecosystem that we have in Munich and in Germany, because they do a lot of hackathons. So how can you empower the students to drive artificial intelligence? And then I think the big aspect where we talked about now all the time is kind of like ethics, but more and more the upcoming regulations. This is something that Verdas is really good and strong in. And what I would like to do is, I think there are one or two questions. I have one question here from Sebastian, so a provoking question. Which aspect of guidance and mentoring teaching is the main differentiator that AI can't deliver? So the question is like, I mean, what will be the jobs of the teachers and the job of AI in the future?
Mm-hmm. Maybe I'll pick up on this question, since I mentioned the point earlier. So thank you so much, Sebastian. Indeed, it is a provocative question, and it's worthwhile to reflect. I would say that indeed, I mean, AI and all the tools, mentoring or guidance tools that have emerged on the market lately to support students on their learning journey are very valuable. But I would also stress that this human connection, human centered mentoring support between the professor or the lecturer and the student is still very important, because it's very easy to get immersed in the technology and lose kind of a perspective on how what is kind of the societal context in which learning happens, what kind of impact is necessary, how to develop and understand, critical thinking and problem solving in the societal context that you or the social economic context in which you are operating, or for which you are seeking kind of the impact that you want to have. So I think that's still very important, and it's an opportunity that these tools allow teachers to free up their time. Oftentimes we hear academics lamenting the fact that they are immersed into all kinds of administrative curricula development, updates, and so on, preparing content for the lectures, and they have little time to really engage with the students, perhaps in a more immersive way, in a more smaller groups, a smaller kind of project-based experiential type of learning. And having these tools as on the side would allow faculty to really harness that extra time on their hands and act more as mentors, guidance, than knowledge providers. I hope this answers your question, Allison.
I can't help myself. I have to jump in as well. I totally agree. I think your answer covers the big. I was going to be even more specific and just say, I think this question, actually, I had to laugh because this question, I think, is an excellent demonstration of one of the things that I think we will always need, or at least so far we will need teachers and professors for, right, is to ask provoking questions and to teach students how to ask the right questions. I think this is one of the keys, right? We have all had experience with AI, with generative AI, where you ask the wrong question, or you ask the question in not the right way, or you don't understand how to interrogate that answer. And that means that you get, as Tristan said, this kind of very standard, very averaged out response. And yes, the tools will get better, but this human skill of understanding how to ask questions, how to challenge, how to engage with ideas and information, I think this is always going to be something that's modeled by human experts who have, their experience, their human expertise behind them, and can teach that. So I think that's something, as Georgeta said, that we can free professors up to do that and have those conversations and model that engagement in ways that we often are distracted by other tasks and duties and administration. I think this is a huge potential.
Yeah, I mean, that's great also for the people listening to us. If you have questions, we still have time to talk about 1-2 things. At the moment, I don't see any questions, so I think now might be also a good time. Oops, let me take this away. So now might be a good time to talk a little bit about what we are doing together in our offerings. So I'm gonna add this. So Georgeta, do you want to talk a little bit about this and go through how we're supporting higher education institutions?
Sure, I can start, and please feel free to to jump in whenever. So as we mentioned, we have the three of us, the three institutions, have come together to really think about and provide a more holistic approach of enabling AI future-ready education institutions. We do focus more on higher education, but education not tackling the lower grades, lower levels of education would not be a full-scale approach, as it's very important to develop a full pipeline of students. Let me see if I can. Oh yeah, I can move through. So we mentioned our approach is really a whole institution approach for future readiness of education institutions, starting from enabling universities to and university leaders to develop a clear vision around integrating AI across all the pillars of the institution, from education, research, the core pillars of higher education, to also administration, operations, and innovation, entrepreneurship, and partnerships with the industry. And here we believe that such an approach is necessary and helpful to both by also integrating strategic foresight practices. So we started this session by saying that this technology has evolved very rapidly, and only in the past 2 to 3 years, at least at this dynamic and integrated in society related use cases. So it's very important to, from a strategic point of view, for education institutions to also build up their strategic foresight muscle, so to say, to be able to anticipate where the technology may be evolving, how the markets evolve, and what kind of skills they have to develop within the student community, so that they can really serve their purpose and keep students engaged for such for the, let's say, the services that education institutions provide. It also requires a very deep engagement with AI ethics, and this is where Verdas AI shines with their experience in exploring how, what kind of regulations, how to develop ethical frameworks, and how to ensure compliance and responsible use of those technologies. And we've also discussed today that upskilling and reskilling is highly necessary, both for not only for the students are really at the forefront of engaging with these technologies, but on the teaching side of education, faculty need to engage with kind of rethinking how learning can be adapted and engage with those tools, but also on the administrative staff. And this is a continuous process because of the very fast development of these technologies, which is also a new context, a new trend. And then Tristan also mentioned, it's very important to assess and understand what use cases make sense, are necessary, what this make-buy dilemma oftentimes. Do we develop the tools in-house? Do we partner with technology providers for which kind of use cases? Which of those are most effective across the whole system, from teaching, operations, and also in innovation and driving entrepreneurship. So we've discussed, we hope those aspects are clear. We are really, we are facing a paradigm shift in learning and teaching, and therefore it's really a structural problem for universities to really rethink the way they engage with actively and provide the necessary skills. And therefore, when we approach on this, this approach has surfaced throughout our discussion. How would we go about enabling universities to deeply integrate AI in their operations and across their pillars, really starting from assessing what the AI readiness is at the institution, through strategic foresight, but also developing comprehensive strategies through very close engagement and alignment of stakeholders, the students as well, understanding their needs, understanding the way, their expectations as well, but also the administrators, the staff, the faculty, of course, the academic and research staff as well. And because this process is not only a technology, so integrating AI into universities is not really about or only about technology. It's also people. Very much a people process. How do you rethink learning? How do you engage with these tools? Change management is very important. It's about paradigm shift in terms of how we teach, how we learn, and therefore thinking about what kind of change management processes are necessary for this whole institution approach and how to implement them to drive that transformation is very important, along with a variety of different interventions to make sure that compliance is met, that monitoring and evaluation processes are in place to secure that we achieve the outcomes, and of course those very important interventions in terms of capacity building at different level, thinking of developing and integrating AI in curricula across disciplines, and also at the leadership level as well, leadership training, to ensure that we have AI-ready education institutions operate. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. Looking at the time, I mean, it seems like we could talk forever, but I mean, our official time is now over. So thank you everyone for joining. And before we leave you, maybe in one sentence, everyone from us can say one call to action for universities, why they should act now, or how they should think about AI and integrating AI into their organization. So maybe Allison, you want to go with your one or two sentence.
Oh, that's a challenge. I think the moment for transformation is now. I think if we don't embrace and think strategically about AI will transform education regardless. So I think where educational institutions are right now is to make a choice about whether they control that transformation, whether they direct it, whether they're strategic about it, or whether it happens to them without their guiding it. So I think now is the time to take charge of that transformation and make it purposeful and make it for the good rather than have it uncontrolled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Georgeta, you.
Fully agree. I would also say act now, proactively rather than reactively, so that universities are at the forefront of this process. Focus on developing an AI strategy, embrace experimentation, and do equip faculty as well as students with needed AI skills to really thrive in the new labor market that we are experiencing.
Yeah,
whole institution approach is key.
Yeah, and maybe the last one from my side. I mean, I totally agree to everything that you have said. What I want to add is kind of like also think about how you can use the existing resources to those students. How can we incorporate them in order to drive adoption of AI, but also how can we include this in the curricula to also make the offering that we have as universities more interesting. So if you are interested and if this calls your attention, you always are free to reach out to any of us, thinking about how we can support you with more very kind of like tailored offerings. And we're just happy to talk about this. And thank you so much for your time. This was it for now from our side, and I hope we we could shed some light into how universities can actually navigate the age of AI. So thank you. You two, please stay a little bit longer, but for all the rest, hopefully see you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.